All right, let me get into this. I want to make a quick, cool, like phenomenological tip hack to help people in one particular way recognize the illusion of the external and internal. So, seeing through that boundary that the mind creates, that there is an external world and an internal world. That is something along our meditative journey that we begin to peer through, and you might go through phases where first everything's there is this harsh divide between sort of this in my mind and then outside the world there, and then you get into a place where actually it's all out there maybe, and I'm just aware back here, or then it becomes it's all in my mind, it's all inside, and then even we see through either or. Um, and I'm going to do this through a route that I haven't heard people talk about. As far as I'm aware, I'm sure I'm not the first, but I haven't come across anyone else make this connection in their experience between the visual screen and somatic sensations, that those two are intimately connected. Um, in meditation, sometimes we want to be able to parse distinction between the senses, know that in the seeing just the seen, in the hearing just the heard, and the feeling just the felt, and so on. Understand that's the feeling part, that's the seeing part, that's the thinking part, whatever it may be. But we also want to be able to see how those blend together. And one way they do this in a really cool way with seeing and feeling. That's what I'm going to be talking about. So, most people start off with this, as far as they're concerned, their experience is constructed such that feeling is associated with the body, obviously. That's why there's tactile touch and senses and the nerve endings. And I feel here, and I don't feel out there. But I can see, broader horizon around me, and the seeing is happening kind of over there. So there's a distancing effect like that. Now, if you get sensitive enough, you actually come to realize that everything you see, you also feel. So everything you see does trigger somatic sensations, right? Um, I'll give an obvious example. Say you're standing in line and someone is standing too close to you, right? You kind of feel like they're invading your private space, your personal area, and then you start to feel uncomfortable. And you know they're standing too close because in your peripheral vision you can see their silhouette, their form, shadow, right? And just from that appearance in seeing, it has created all these uncomfortable sensations. You feel their presence, and then you feel awkward, you feel anxious. They haven't touched you, they're not touching you, but it's just through the presence of new sensory stimuli that it's created all of these feelings on this side of the body, right? And you can sense that where they're too close, might they touch you. So I'm going to explain this in a really like non-spooky way, even, right? Some people say, oh, we feel the energies and of those around us and all that, and that's one interpretation. And I think what I'm going to say is compatible with that, but also if you are not so into those kind of takes on reality, you think like low epistemic rigor in that regard, and what is energy, woo woo. Fine, I'm going to talk about this in just phenomenological terms. So the introduction of new sensory stimuli sort of triggers somatic sensations there. A lot of people get that example, right? We've all been there, we've all felt it. That's an extreme example. I want to say that is actually the case for everything. So if that person were to take a millimeter step away from you, the sensations would lessen, right? As there's less of an impression of them coming into your space. If you become really, really sensitive, you start to feel this for all things that are that you're detecting in your environment. So, give another example. Even this microphone, right? If I look at this microphone and there's a sense of it kind of protruding towards me, it does. I'm not afraid of this microphone. I'm not worried it's gonna move or stab me or something like this. But being sensitive enough, the looking at it, detecting it, it does create impressions. My mind maps it. It does, through the visual stimuli, also somatically maps what would it be like to feel like if I was touching it, even if it were to touch my face. If I turn, I can detect sensations on my cheekbone now in relation and associated to this microphone. The connection is there. You have to be very sensitive to notice this. And one way to increase your sensitivity to somatic sensations is obviously a lot of body scanning meditation. Really going in detail, becoming more attuned to finer grained sensations. And then actually consequently after having done a lot of body scanning meditation, typically we do this eyes closed, but then kind of graduating to another type of scanning is eyes open and scanning the whole experience space. Like eyes open, not moving your eyes, and just feeling through the whole experience space. And even though you're not moving the center of your eyesight, the fovea, you can scan through your awareness what is in all of vision, and notice that it does correspond to somatic sensations. For seeing predominantly, particularly in the head, right? Because the sense that we see from our head or from our face. And so what you feel will create subtle sensations. Now, you may not believe me, but just like test this out, look for yourself. Even do it with stark and striking objects to begin with. I give the example standing in line with another person. That's kind of a clear one. But can you, take something like this, point at you, is like, oh, and change in relationship to it, and notice how you can track sensations here. But there's a prediction of like where that would stab you, like in particular in the eye, like this. But even I can bring it down. I think this does require a lot of sensitivity. So you have to train for this. You have to build up to this. But the cool thing about recognizing this connection is this is how we can begin to blend that sense of inside and outside. To recognize, oh, it's not me feeling over here and then the outside world being seen over there. This whole thing is being felt. This whole thing is my body, like an extension of my body. So you may start to get this connection, and then you'll get into a lens of it still like, well, there's seeing over there, which then triggers feeling over here. And then we can kind of play with that. We can, is the seeing there and the feeling here? And then maybe we can begin to bring the seeing here or bring the feeling out there, right? So I am feeling out there. But then eventually we can see the emptiness of all that, collapse all that. And there's just an intimacy with feeling and seeing, which is like really, as humans are very primary senses worth working with. So this is just a cool, like, phenomenological hack. And when you really get this is how you begin to have the experience that you're feeling the world. You're feeling the whole world. Right? Just there is a connection with all of this. This really does go so far as imagine you're standing outside, and in the far far distance on the horizon is like a mountain peak, right? And it's super far away, super faint, but you can see it and you can detect it. It will, say you line it up right in front of you, it will create like a kind of pointy sensation, very, very faint because it's so far away. It doesn't feel obtrusive. But there will be an association associated with the mountaintop, right? Maybe bridge of your nose or something, and it will change depending on how you relate to it. A lot of what I think prevents people from seeing this or making this connection is limited conscious capacity. So we can only be aware of so much at a given time. Despite what people might say about infinite consciousness, there is a limit to how much we can experience at once. I mean, the capacity can increase and decrease. The sense of infinite consciousness is an experience that can be had. That's different than it actually like numerically corresponding to a containment of mind. So a lot of what takes up people's conscious capacity, like why they won't have the sensitivity to be able to notice this, which is required, is big ones are just heavy conceptual overlay, lots of thinking that prevent enough like engagement, mental mind engagement with objects of perception, because part of that capacity is taken away with linguistic conceptual thinking. Another big, bottleneck in our capacity range is sense of self, sense of center. These like tight constrictions, like tight somatic constrictions. They will correspond with somatic constrictions that have an ardency and a sense of permanence that are just taking up our bandwidth and our ability to pay attention to the microphenomenology and recognize what is experience, how does it work, what are the relationships here, what can we notice. So that's why it makes a world of difference once you've dissolved those tight constrictions like a center and such. Then your sensitivity goes way up. Your ability to notice so much more about perception and the mind goes way up as well. So anyway, quick sort of tips there. Try this out for yourself. Look out for it, and take care.